This is the recording of my second learner who is in grade 6.
Graduation during the pandemic by Ma Maleni L. Padohinog. I was very excited to complete my sixth grade, but that feeling was suddenly replaced with worry when our country was hit by COVID-19. The situation was frightening. It has worsened. Then the said virus has become a pandemic. People began to panic. Other hoarded foods and hygiene materials from grocery store. Students, staff, school senior citizens, and children below 18 years old were not allowed to go outside of their homes. Those who were allowed needed to wear face masks and follow health protocols such as social distancing and washing of hands with soap and water and using alcohol every now and then. One day, while I was watering the plants in our background garden, received a call coming from my class advisor. Hello dear, good morning. It is with a heavy heart to inform you that complete program for this school year will be suspended due to COVID-19. I just suggest you stay at home and be safe, my teacher told me. Hello, ma'am. Good morning. I'm sad to hear that, but we could do nothing about it anymore. We'll just pray that this pandemic ends soon. Thank you, ma'am, for calling, I said. The news really broke my heart. I asked myself, why are these things happening now? I told my parents about the sad news. They too were unhappy to hear it. Don't worry, my child. Everything will become the normal in God's perfect time. Let's just trust Him, my dad said. Summer come, I still have 4 hour completion program in school, but I did not happen. Luckily, our teacher taught of a house-to-house distribution of our certificates and awards. Isaac do receive your certificate of completion and your award a white height honors. I'm happy to tell you that you top your class this school year. Congratulations, my advisor. Announce happy. Wow, congratulations, my son, your dad, and I are very proud of you. Let's celebrate then, Mom. Said. Excited said. I'm really grateful that despite the pandemic, we have success complete our elementary education. Graduation during the pandemic by Ma Maleni L. Padohinog. I was very excited
The learner mispronounced very as berry.
to complete my sixth grade.
The learner mispronounced sixth as sykes.
But that feeling was suddenly replaced with worry.
The learner mispronounced suddenly as sadnelin. He also said replace instead of replaced, omitting the final D.
When our country was hit by COVID-19,
The learner said it instead of hit, omitting the letter H.
the situation was frightening.
The learner mispronounced situation as situation, and he substituted was with what. He also said brightening instead of frightening.
It has worsened than the said virus.
The learner did not pronounce the final ed in worsened, and he substituted when with then. Also, the learner mispronounced said as said.
Has become a pandemic. People began to panic.
The learner repeated the first syllable of began. Initially, he said begha, and then he successfully corrected himself afterwards.
Other hoarded foods and hygiene materials from grocery store.
The learner said other instead of others, omitting this sound. He also mispronounced hoarded as hooded and foods as poods. The learner mispronounced grocery as grocery, and he omitted this sound in stores.
Students stopped school.
At first, the learner pronounced schooling correctly, but he read it again and he said school, so he abandoned the correct word.
Senior citizen and children below 18 years old.
The learner omitted again the s sound in citizens, and he also mispronounced children as children.
Were not allowed to go outside of their homes.
The learner mispronounced allowed as allow.
Those who were allowed needed.
The learner said juice instead of those, and for the second time, he mispronounced allowed as allow.
To wear face masks and follow.
The learner mispronounced the words face as face and masks as mask, omitting the s sound. Also, he said follow instead of follow.
Health protocol such as social distancing.
The learner said protocol instead of protocols, omitting the s sound again. He also mispronounced such as sunch and social as social.
And washing of hands with soap and water and using alcohol every now and then.
The learner mispronounced soap as soap, and he said every instead of every.
One day while I was watering the plants in our background garden received a call.
The learner did not pronounce again the s sound in plants, and he mispronounced backyard as background. The learner also omitted the letter I.
Coming from my class advisor.
The learner initially said advisor, but he successfully corrected himself afterwards.
Hello dear, good morning. It is with a heavy heart to inform you that
The learner said with instead of with, and he substituted a with the, and then eventually corrected it the second time. The learner said your instead of you, and he also omitted the word your.
complete program for this school year will be suspended
The learner mispronounced completion as complete.
due to COVID-19. I just suggest you stay at home and be safe.
The learner initially said just, and he corrected it on his second attempt. He also said safe instead of safe.
My teacher told me, "Hello, ma'am. Good morning." I'm sad to hear that,
The learner mispronounced I as I'm, and he omitted Initially he said said, but he successfully corrected himself afterwards.
what we call do nothing about it anymore.
The learner mispronounced could as cold.
We'll just pray that this pandemic ends soon.
The learner said end instead of ends, omitting the s sound.
Thank you, ma'am, for calling. I said. The news really broke my heart.
The learner mispronounced news as new, omitting the sound for the nth time.
I asked myself, why are these things happening now?
The learner mispronounced asked as asked, omitting the final ed. He also mispronounced the words these as this and things as ding.
I told my parents about the sad news. They too were unhappy to hear it.
The learner mispronounced the words parents as parents and news as newt.
Don't worry, my shield. Everything
The learner said shill instead of child.
will become the normal in God's perfect time.
The learner substituted be with become and he omitted back. Also, he did not include the apostrophe s in God's and he mispronounced perfect as perfect.
Let's just trust him, my dad said.
For the nth time, the learner said said instead of said.
Summer come, I still have 4 hour completion.
The learner mispronounced came as come and he substituted hope with half. Also, he said completish instead of completion.
Program in school, but I did not happen.
The learner substituted it with I.
Luckily, our teacher taught of a house-to-house distribution.
The learner said luckil instead of luckily, omitting the letter Y. He also omitted the s sound in teachers, and he mispronounced thought as tout. Also, the learner mispronounced distribution as distribution.
Of our certificates and awards.
The learner repeated certificates twice.
Isaac do receive your certificate of completion.
The learner omitted the letter R in your, and he mispronounced completion as completion.
And your award a white height.
The learner mispronounced with as white and high as height.
Honors. I'm happy to tell you that you top your class.
The learner mispronounced the words honors as honors, I as I'm, and as a. Initially, he said ham, but eventually pronounced it correctly in his second attempt. Also, he substituted you with your. The learner said top instead of topped, omitting the final ed.
This school year. Congratulations, my advisor. announced happy.
The learner omitted the sound in congratulations. Also, he mispronounced the words advisor as advisor and announced as announce, omitting the t sound. He mispronounced as well happily as happy.
Wow, congratulations, my son.
The learner omitted the s sound in congratulations for the second time, and he mispronounced son as soon.
Your dad and I are very proud of you. Let's celebrate then, Mom. Said. Said.
The learner mispronounced the phrase excitedly said as excite said, and he repeated it twice.
I'm really grateful that
The learner again mispronounced I as I'm and as ah.
despite the pandemic, we have success complete our elementary education.
The learner said success instead of successfully, omitting fully. He also mispronounced completed as complete, omitting the final D.